The day Caleb turned 18, he said yes to Asher. That night, he found himself 10 years older, watching a man who was also Asher, but not. This version was poised, self-assured, smiling as he indulged a younger man's petulant request. Snowflakes like powdered sugar dusted the city as Asher lifted him onto his back, murmuring promises of a shared lifetime as they walked toward a warm, distant home. Caleb's own spirit, still a reckless teenager, broke free. He shouted, his voice swallowed by the winter air, asking Asher what, then, had become of him. When Asher had first confessed his feelings, his words were thick with the scent of cheap beer from the graduation party. The hand that clutched the hem of Caleb's t-shirt was unsteady. He couldn't meet Caleb's eyes, his gaze fixed on the ground as he admitted he wanted nothing else from him. Only Caleb himself, asking if he would be with him. Caleb had been stunned by a vulnerability so contrary to the boy he knew. He was the youngest, the golden child of a wealthy family, accustomed to a life of whimsy and indulgence. Making friends was his favorite sport, and they always gained something from his orbit: cash, gifts, connections. He had an endless supply of both money and companions. Only Asher had remained aloof. He was fiercely intelligent, from a world of scholarships and hard work, burying himself in books with no time for a glance in Caleb's direction. Caleb wasn't one to chase someone who clearly disliked him, so their paths merely crossed in the crowded school hallways, his world a constant party, Asher's a silent study hall. This continued until their final exams were over. At the raucous kegger celebrating their freedom, Asher, his eyes red-rimmed and courage bolstered by alcohol, confessed. Caleb's heart stuttered, then began to hammer against his ribs. He agreed, with the condition that Asher would have to treat him exceptionally well, for he had never known a day of hardship. Asher, overcome with a disbelieving joy, pulled him into an embrace so tight it felt like his bones might crack, promising a lifetime of devotion. Looking at Asher's sharp, earnest features, Caleb initiated their first kiss, smiling as he vowed to be good to him in return. Later that night, back in his own bathroom, his reflection showed a face flushed with excitement, the corners of his lips tilted in a permanent smile. He had never seen himself look so captivated. The next instant, he was in a different bathroom, stark and unfamiliar. The face in this mirror was his but hollowed out, etched with fine lines at the eyes and a downturned mouth that spoke of chronic sorrow. A constellation of pale scars littered his gaunt forearms. In his hand, he held a wickedly sharp utility knife. Only the vibrant, defiant spark in his eyes remained from the boy he was just moments before. He was 18. The man in the mirror was not, yet it was undeniably him. He found a phone, a sleek, alien model, and saw that a decade had passed. The contacts were strangers. He searched for his family, but their numbers, their messages were gone. The call log was empty except for a single, unsaved number. He dialed it, stating his name and asking who was on the other end. After a beat of silence, a dry, weary laugh answered. The man on the other end mocked him, asking if this was some new, pathetic attempt at amnesia, begging Caleb to just leave him alone. The voice was deep and tired, vaguely familiar but impossible to place. Caleb persisted, demanding to know who he was and what had happened over the last 10 years. The man muttered a single word, psychopath, and the line went dead. An overwhelming sense of absurdity washed over him. The penthouse was cavernous and empty. Outside the panoramic windows, snow fell on the city. Caleb bundled himself in layers and ran outside. The world was transformed. He searched for his family's address on a map application. It was 3,000 miles away. A different address, one in this city, appeared frequently in the search history. He hailed a cab and went there. It was a street of opulent townhouses, eerily quiet under the blanket of snow. At the end of the block, two figures stood locked in an intimate embrace, one tall, one shorter. The taller man seemed familiar, but the polished maturity was a disguise Caleb couldn't penetrate. He pulled his beanie down and walked toward them. The shorter man was young, about 18, with smooth skin and an air of innocent charm. He was playfully asking the taller man, whom he called Ash, to carry him home. Now Caleb recognized him. It was Asher. A soft smile touched Asher's lips as he adjusted the young man's scarf, agreeing to the request with a gentle capitulation. He crouched down, inviting the boy he called his whole world to climb onto his back. The young man leaped on with a joyful laugh. They moved through the snow, their combined weight pressing deep, dark footprints into the fresh powder. The young man noted how the snow in their hair made it look like they were growing old together. Asher's response was a low, affectionate hum of agreement. They were a perfect, self-contained world. Caleb couldn't stand it. He called for them to stop, that he had a question. Asher turned, and upon seeing Caleb, his expression hardened into a cold mask. Caleb ignored it, his voice ringing out, demanding to know where he fit into this picture. Asher's reply was laced with scorn, calling him a persistent ghost. He reminded Caleb that he was the one who ended things, questioning why he was still clinging to him now. This Asher was a stranger, not just distant but filled with a palpable disgust. The tentative boy from the party was gone. Caleb bristled at his tone, retorting that no one wanted to cling to him. He then asked if they knew why he was here, in a city so far from his home. Asher couldn't be bothered to reply. The young man on his back, however, looked conflicted, telling Caleb in a tremulous voice that he and Ash were over, asking why he kept showing up. Caleb's mind was a chaotic mess of confusion and irritation. He snapped at the boy to speak properly. The young man's eyes welled with tears as he whimpered that this was just how he talked. Asher shifted his weight, patting the boy's shoulder reassuringly, telling him to ignore Caleb, dismissing him as sick. Asher then issued a final to Caleb before turning his back and walking away. A hot surge of anger filled Caleb's chest. He crouched, packing snow into a dense, heavy ball and hurled it at them. He shouted after them, reminding Asher of his promise to treat him exceptionally well, since he'd never known hardship. He demanded to know why Asher would make promises he couldn't keep. He launched one snowball after another, breaking the couple apart. Before a doorman emerged to intervene, Caleb flashed a defiant grin and fled. With a final glance back, he saw Asher standing alone, staring after him with a bewildered expression. Caleb spat into the snow, muttered an insult about the man, and left. Back at the penthouse, he found his identification and, with it, a stack of medical records and a pharmacy's worth of pill bottles. The records diagnosed him with severe depression and suicidal ideations. He laughed at the absurdity. Him? Depressed? It was nonsense. He tossed the papers aside. That same evening, he was on a flight home. As the plane ascended, the snow gave way to a vast, brilliant blue sky. He was moving through the clouds, the landscape below completely obscured. A strange melancholy settled over him, a tightness in his chest that made it hard to breathe. It felt as if leaving that city would either stop his heart or restart it. He couldn't tell which. He pressed a hand to his chest and wiped his face, surprised to find his fingers wet with tears. He wondered if maybe he really was sick. The thought lasted only a moment before he pushed it away. He arrived at his family home with the force of a whirlwind, throwing open the door and calling out for his parents and his sister. No one appeared to greet him. No father challenging him to a game of chess. No mother fussing over him being cold. No sister teasing him about his dramatic entrances. Only his mother sat on the sofa, a photo album resting in her lap. She looked up, her face devoid of a smile, her eyes filled with tears. She wiped them away frantically, whispering to herself that it was another hallucination. A pang of sorrow hit Caleb. He rushed to her, wrapping her in a hug. She was so thin, her bones sharp against him, the lines on her face deeper than he remembered. He asked her why she looked so much older, admonishing his father for not taking better care of her. His mother stiffened. She looked up at him, her grief turning to fury. She shoved him away, pointing a trembling finger at the door, her voice cracking as she screamed at him to get out, questioning how he had the nerve to even mention his father. She told him to leave her house and never return. But even as she raged, tears streamed down her face. Caleb was stunned. He was beginning to understand that, in this future, no one loved him anymore. His own tears began to fall, his body shaking uncontrollably. He clutched his head, desperate to know what he had done wrong. He just wanted to come home. He'd traveled so far, from the northern snow to the southern sun he loved. Why was it so cold here? Too? He was cast out, left to crouch by the front gate like a stone gargoyle. He lost track of time, the day bleeding into night. His sister arrived home from work and, upon seeing him, kicked him hard in the shoulder, knocking him over. She asked who he thought he was performing for, reminding him that this was the path he chose and demanding to know why he had come back. He didn't understand. The pain in his shoulder was a dull, throbbing ache. He asked his sister what he had done. No one would answer him. He stood in the biting southern wind, with nowhere to go. For a week, he lingered near the house. He saw his sister leave for work each day and his mother leave occasionally, but she never once looked his way. He never saw his father. He guessed that Asher must know the truth. That unlisted number in his phone had to be his. He tried calling again, but it seemed he had been blocked. He was adrift. In the first 18 years of his life, he had never felt so utterly alone. He had always been the center of his universe, and now it was empty. The single greatest variable in his life had been Asher's confession. With that thought, he stopped his frantic searching and began to dig through the phone's cloud storage for clues. He found them in a decade's worth of journal entries. Reading them felt like being struck by lightning. June 23, 2015. Asher got into Columbia. I'm not as brilliant as him, and I don't want a long-distance relationship right after we started. I picked NYU. Dad asked why I wasn't going abroad. I told him I wanted to stay home and spend more time with them. They smiled. When Asher heard I was moving to New York with him, he held me so tight. I thought things would only get better from here. October 7, 2015. Asher used the money he earned from a summer internship to take me on a road trip up the coast. I've been to all those places before, but watching him meticulously plan our route, I wanted to see them all again with him. It's different traveling with someone you love than with family. With family, it's fun. With a lover, your heart races. I tried to pay for things to ease his burden, but he always refused, talking about his pride. I just waited for him while he worked part-time jobs. I loved watching him strive. May 20th, 2016. Asher coded a little game for me, a tiny digital version of himself that lives on my phone. He has one of me on his. We take care of each other's avatars. I'm so happy. January 1st, 2017. New Year's Day. Asher bought us matching rings with money he made developing a game. He gave it to me at midnight as fireworks exploded over the East River. His smile was as bright as the lights in the sky. He really kept his promise to be especially good to me. I love him more every day. May 20th, 2018. Bliss. June 20th, 2019. We graduated. Asher landed a job at a rising tech startup where the CEO sees his potential. I took a simple job to pass the time. My father is pushing me to come home and take over the family business. I don't want to leave Asher, so I keep putting it off. May 1st, 2020. My parents came to visit. They saw Asher and me kissing. My father was furious. He demanded we break up. I refused, crying and begging him to accept us. May 5th, 2020. Dad had a massive stroke. It was my fault. They wouldn't let me see him at the hospital. My sister and mom threw me out. I never got to say goodbye. Asher held me and told me it was okay, that I still had him, and he would always be there for me. I believed him. June 1st, 2020. It's raining. I feel sick. I keep thinking about Dad. I said I was staying in the country to be with family, but I barely ever went home except for holidays. I'm a terrible person. I deserve this. September 2nd, 2020. I'm sick. The doctor prescribed me fluoxetine. Asher is busy with a promotion. I don't want to distract him. I can get better on my own. December 1st, 2020. There's a new guy around Asher, the CEO's son. He's supposed to be learning from Asher. I feel so insecure. I cried and made a scene, told him I was sick and needed him to spend more time with me. Asher said I wasn't a child anymore and told me to just take my medicine. He said the CEO's son was less childish than I was. January 1st, 2222. Asher promised to spend New Year's with me. He didn't come home. The CEO's son got sick and needed Asher to take care of him. I called so many times, but he turned his phone off. I wasn't even sad. I think I'm just numb. December 30th, 2024. I can't remember things lately. The doctor gave me more pills. He said my depression is severe. He said I should be around the people closest to me. I smiled and told him I don't have anyone close to me. Today is the CEO's son's 20th birthday. Asher bought him a Rolex. He hasn't given me a gift in a long time. I think he believes I have nowhere else to go. He's wrong. There's always one way out. I took off the ring Asher gave me and flushed it down the toilet. I told him I wanted to break up. He told me not to be dramatic. January 5th, 2025. Asher finally agreed to break up. He said he was tired of my neuroses. He moved out, leaving me in this enormous, empty penthouse. It's just like me. Empty. January 8th, 2025. So tired. Eating is exhausting. Showering is exhausting. Even sleeping is exhausting. What's the point of being alive? January 20th, 2025. It's so cold. I want to die. Do I have a future? January 22nd, 2025. I survived. Don't want to eat again. The physical symptoms are becoming too frequent. I want to die. Before I do, I look in the mirror and don't recognize myself. Gone. Lifeless. Wrinkles at my eyes. A mouth that has forgotten how to smile. I remember being 18, so full of fire. If I could go back 10 years, I would never go to that graduation party. Friends, lovers, it's all fake. I want my family. I'm so greedy. I deserve to die. Hundreds of entries. The college years were sweet, but everything after was a descent into misery. Caleb could barely breathe, hot tears streaming down his face. He sat on the cold pavement outside his family's gate, wiping his eyes and cursing his own stupidity. His life had been a parade of suffering from the moment he got with Asher. If he hadn't traveled to this time, would his 28-year-old self have died? He didn't have the depth of feeling for Asher to understand it. The only thought in his head was that he had to go back to change the future. That bathroom mirror was the key. He took one last look at his home. His mother was standing at a second-floor window. She saw him turn and quickly drew the curtains. He wiped his face and walked away without looking back. He flew back north that night and stood before the mirror for hours, but nothing happened. A tide of negative emotions crashed over him. His soul was free, but his body was a cage, the two at war with each other. A headache split his skull. He wasn't going back. The thought terrified him and enraged him. He retrieved the prescriptions from the trash and took the pills as directed. His emotions dulled, his mind grew foggy. He slept for what felt like days, his dreams filled with turmoil. When he woke, he took a cab to Asher's gated community. He waited from morning until night. Asher finally arrived in a luxury sedan, the CEO's son beaming in the passenger seat. Caleb stepped in front of the car, raised a tire iron he had brought with him, and smashed it into the windshield. So much for depression. It was just anger turned inward for too long. The best cure was to redirect that rage outward, to make the person who broke him sick with it. That's what the 18-year-old Caleb would do. The young man screamed. Asher stormed out of the car, calling him a lunatic. Caleb's smile was radiant, momentarily dazzling Asher before he slapped him hard across the face. He said with a cheerful lilt that of course he was crazy. Why else would he have stayed with a scumbag like him for so long? He dropped the tire iron and dusted off his jacket. He told Asher he had two choices: have him arrested or deal with him showing up and losing his mind whenever he felt like it. He glanced at the young man cowering behind Asher, promising that if he wasn't happy, none of them would be. He turned to leave. Asher's voice was low, heavy with disappointment, telling him he wasn't always like this. That even when he was spoiled, he had always put Asher first and had never been so unreasonable. The hypocrisy was so staggering it made Caleb laugh. He marched back and slapped him again. He told Asher that this is what he had become, because of him. He blamed Asher's entitlement on his own failure to hit him hard enough to make him think. Asher stared into his eyes, not retaliating. The young man behind him tugged at his arm, urging him to call the police. Asher took a deep breath and shook his head, saying that after all they'd been through, he didn't want to make things uglier. He told Caleb to go. Caleb had no intention of staying. This body rarely felt hunger, so he set alarms on his phone to remind himself to eat, even just a little. For days, he haunted the bathroom, staring into the mirror, but it remained inert. On the fifth day, Asher showed up. He still had the code for the lock. He stepped inside, his brow furrowing at the mess in the living room as he asked when Caleb would learn to take care of himself. Caleb told him it was none of his business and ignored him. Asher sat on the sofa anyway, explaining why he thought they could never work. He said Caleb's family never approved and that Caleb blamed him for his father's death, which was exhausting. He contrasted this with the other boy, Leo, who had apparently gone on a hunger strike to force his own father's approval. Leo, he said, truly loved him. So, the implication was that the Caleb of a few years ago hadn't loved him enough. The audacity was breathtaking. Caleb lunged at him, hand raised to strike. Asher caught his wrist, a strange smile on his face. He observed that Caleb had more life in him lately, that he was no longer so listless. He told him to stop fighting, promising that after his next promotion, he would come back for him. He reached out to stroke the back of Caleb's neck, adding that he couldn't just throw away 10 years of history. The man was repulsive. Caleb bit down hard on his hand. Asher yelped in pain, his eyes flashing with annoyance as he asked where else Caleb could possibly go, claiming no one else would ever want him. He insisted that staying with him was his only option. Caleb's patience snapped. He gave him the middle finger and screamed at him to get the hell out of his house. Asher stared at his mouth, a nostalgic look in his eyes. He reminisced about how Caleb was in high school, how he could get along with anyone but also curse them out, and how everyone, including himself, had loved him for it. Caleb felt physically ill. If this was the person he time-traveled to be disgusted by, he would rather be dead. He finally managed to shove him out the door and then stood in front of the mirror, letting loose a string of curses. Suddenly, words began to form on the glass. He didn't have time to read them before the world tilted and went dark. When he opened his eyes again, he was home, back in the house he couldn't enter in the future. Written on the mirror in marker were the words, "I'm sorry I broke up with him on your behalf. If you're seeing this, please don't get involved with Asher. It will only lead to misery. Please be good to my family. Thank you." It was signed, the you from 10 years later. He checked the time. The flow had been parallel. Less than 2 weeks had passed. High school was over. All of Asher's contact information had been deleted and blocked. It seemed it wasn't a simple trip to the future, but an exchange. They were both working to change their fate. He stood there for a long time, then picked up a pen from the counter, erased the message and wrote his own. "If anyone gives you trouble, you just hit them. Dad and Mom didn't raise me to be a doormat." It was signed, the 18-year-old you. A few seconds later, a single word appeared in condensation next to his writing, "Okay." Asher contacted him from an unknown number. Caleb answered by mistake. Asher's clear voice was filled with confusion, asking why he had broken up with him. Even knowing this version of Asher was innocent, Caleb couldn't muster any kindness. The 28-year-old version had been too vile, and the anger lingered. He told him coldly that a breakup didn't require a reason. The reason, he said, was that Asher was too poor and not good enough for him. A long silence followed, then a choked sound from Asher. He asked if that meant he might have a chance if he wasn't poor anymore. Caleb crushed that hope immediately, stating that even if Asher became the richest man in the world, they would never have a chance. Asher, unwilling to accept it, demanded a proper reason. Caleb hung up on him, just as the older Asher had hung up on him. There was no reason, just as there had been no reason for Asher to betray him in the future, yet he had done it and tried to pin the blame on Caleb. Soon after, Caleb followed his parents' wishes and went to study abroad. He returned 4 years later to take on a role in his father's company. His father had started with a gritty, ruthless reputation in real estate before transitioning into finance. Some of his old guards still occasionally called Caleb Young Boss, and he found he liked the sound of it. It gave him a sense of power that made the corporate world more exciting. 2 years later, his father handed over the entire company to him and left with his mother on a long-overdue global honeymoon. Caleb had asked his sister if she wanted to manage the company with him, but she declined. She was getting married and was content with her dividends. He remembered from the journal that after their father's death, his sister had sacrificed her own relationship to take over the business and had never married. Now she didn't have to. He nodded and wished her a lifetime of happiness. She looked at him for a long moment, then sighed, remarking how much he had changed since he was 18. He had become more mature, yet in a way that worried her, even though he excelled at everything he did. His parents, she said, had been concerned he'd undergone some trauma. He just smiled. He used to scoff when teachers said people grow up in an instant. After living as his 28-year-old self, he believed it. The whole experience felt like a dream, until the day Asher, dressed in a sharp suit, appeared before him, extending a hand. His gaze was deep as he said it had been a long time. Asher was there to discuss a partnership. Caleb had heard he'd still gone to Colombia. Without a dependent lover to support, he had used his savings to start a company. It was a tech firm, and their first product was a relationship simulation game. It was a customizable avatar that lived on your phone's home screen, powered by an advanced AI that could react, answer questions, blush, and get angry. It provided a potent dose of emotional value and became a national sensation. Asher's net worth skyrocketed. At only 25, he was already more successful than the 28-year-old version Caleb had met. Caleb didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed love had ruined everyone, while its absence saved them. He had no desire to deal with Asher, but business was business. They sat across from each other, exchanging pleasantries and veiled corporate maneuvers. When the meeting concluded, Caleb had his assistant show Asher out, but Asher pretended not to take the hint. He smiled and asked Caleb to dinner. Caleb, no longer the transparent teenager he once was, agreed, playing the part of the gracious host. He had his assistant book a table at the city's grimiest, most unpretentious dive bar. The contract was signed. He didn't care if Asher was offended. Asher, however, seemed oblivious to his animosity, walking beside him toward the bar. He casually angled his phone so Caleb could see the screen. A pixelated little character that looked just like him was sucking its thumb. During dinner, he placed the phone face up on the table, occasionally interacting with the little avatar. Caleb couldn't take it anymore. He pointed at the phone and threatened to report him for using his likeness without permission. Asher flipped the phone over. He hadn't had much to drink, but he seemed drunk. He looked at Caleb through heavy-lidded eyes, his voice low and vulnerable as he asked if he was good enough now that he had money. Caleb knew this Asher was blameless, but he couldn't risk his and his family's future on a gamble. He told him about the night he turned 18, about traveling to a future where it was snowing and Asher was carrying another man named Leo on his back. Their footprints deep in the snow, smiling as they talked of growing old together. He described standing right behind them and asking Asher where he belonged, only to be called a madman and told to get lost. He took a sip of beer and continued, explaining that at the time he had been furious, because Asher had just promised to be so good to him, only to turn around and be that good to someone else. But he was only 18, not yet deeply in love, so he hadn't clung. He had gone back to their home, a home Asher had already moved out of, and discovered that the 28-year-old Caleb was on a cocktail of antidepressants. Unable to eat, a man who had let his own father die of anger just to be with Asher. He told him how that version of himself hadn't dared to go home, but he had. He had flown 3,000 miles, only to have his mother and sister tell him to get out. He asked Asher if he could understand what that felt like. Asher was completely bewildered. He assumed Caleb was drunk. Caleb shook his head and told him the person who had broken up with him wasn't really him. It was the 28-year-old Caleb, who had been planning to kill himself right before he arrived. Asher was silent for a moment, then a slow smile spread across his face. He asked if that meant they hadn't technically broken up. His focus wasn't on the suicide. Caleb shook his head again, saying they were the same person, so it was a breakup. Asher's face fell, his hands clenching into fists as he insisted he couldn't accept it. Caleb just shrugged, telling him that was his problem. Asher became more persistent, using work as an excuse to appear in Caleb's life frequently. His company was now based in the same city, not far from Caleb's, so they ran into each other often. Exasperated, Caleb invited him to his home. Asher was ecstatic, thinking it was a step forward in their relationship. Caleb led him to the bathroom and showed him how he communicated with the future. He wrote on the mirror, "How are you? Did the future change?" Several minutes later, white, vaporous letters appeared in a space that had been blank. "Who is this?" Asher watched, his eyes wide with disbelief. The next moment, his expression went slack, and when he blinked again, his demeanor had changed. He looked exhausted, defeated, but his eyes lit up with surprise upon seeing Caleb. It was a situation he recognized all too well. This time, Asher had been the one to travel. Caleb asked this new version of Asher what he was doing on the other side of the mirror. This Asher was clever and pieced it together instantly, murmuring that the person who had sought him out all those years ago had been the younger Caleb. He covered his face with one hand, a wave of helplessness passing over him. He confessed he never knew how sick Caleb had truly been. He had just thought it was a ploy for attention. Caleb wasn't interested in his remorse. He wanted to know if his own future had been rewritten. Asher paused, then told him that his sickness had gotten better. When his father fell ill, he had returned home and never came back to New York. That explained why he had been unreachable. His father was alive. The future had been altered, but the fact that he and this Asher still retained these memories suggested that some outcomes were inevitable. They were fated to fail. Asher, however, saw it as a golden opportunity. He grabbed Caleb's hand, his voice urgent. He proposed they start over, since they were both back in the past and no real damage had been done yet. This Asher was even less appealing than his 25-year-old counterpart. Caleb's face hardened, and he yanked his hand away. He asked what would happen after they started over. Would they just repeat the same tragedy? Asher swore it would be different, that he would be good to him for a lifetime. The words were so familiar they were laughable. Caleb did laugh. He called Asher shameless for making promises he had no intention of keeping, reminding him he'd said the exact same thing when they were 18. Asher's face went pale, but he continued to stare at Caleb with desperate eyes, insisting it was different now. He knew his mistakes. He couldn't live without him. He said that after Caleb left, he had moved into that empty penthouse alone. He was constantly reminded of when they first bought it, how Caleb had smiled and said he finally had a home again. He imagined how lonely Caleb must have been, all alone in that big house. He remembered what the younger Caleb had said, but in the end, he had still abandoned him when he had no home to return to. And now, unable to win that Caleb back, he was trying to capture this younger version. He wanted everyone, and in the end, he would have no one. Caleb asked him who he thought he was being fair to, that other Caleb, Leo, or him. Asher stood frozen, unable to speak. The soul-swapped Asher followed Caleb around for a month like a ghost, asking if Caleb hadn't hit him enough back then, offering his face to be punched as long as Caleb wouldn't ignore him. Caleb scoffed, telling him that was a conversation for someone else. Defeated, Asher told him that the other Caleb had never laid a hand on him. He had simply erased him from his life, treating him like a stranger. He would have preferred to be beaten, hated, anything but ignored. Caleb told him that was because he was sick and had lost himself, and just when he was beginning to heal, Asher, the parasite, had tried to latch on again. He couldn't stomach it. As Asher wished, he drove his fist into his face. He had taken up boxing while studying abroad, a way to channel his occasional fits of rage. The skill had not been wasted. Asher didn't fight back, just held his bruised jaw and smiled bitterly, noting how different they were. Caleb, away from him, was still brilliant. The Caleb by his side had lost his light. Suddenly, Asher gave up his pursuit. He asked Caleb to take him to his family home, saying it was time for him to return to his own world. When the original Asher returned, he was much quieter. He would often stare at Caleb, lost in thought, even during business meetings. Caleb, now a workaholic, had no patience for unprofessionalism. He dismissed everyone from the boardroom to speak with Asher alone. He told him to get his act together. Asher looked down, his dark hair falling over his intense, conflicted eyes. He explained that he had gone to find the other Caleb, who had seen through his identity immediately. They had talked for a long time. The other Caleb had apologized for breaking up with him on his behalf. He mentioned the scars on his arms. As he spoke, Asher's eyes filled with tears, a single track running down his left cheek. He confessed how scared he was, that if they had stayed together, Caleb might have actually died. He didn't understand it because he had loved him so much for so long. He wanted to kill his future self, but he was afraid that if he did, he might not be able to return. And he didn't know what would happen to the younger Caleb in that timeline. All he could do was break his future self's legs, to make sure he stayed far, far away from the other Caleb. Caleb listened in silence. Asher was like a beast trapped in a cage, struggling futilely for freedom. So he had to give him up. Was that it? Caleb finally spoke, nodding calmly. He told him yes, to give him up and to let himself go. He said softly that what they had between them wasn't that deep. Was it? Asher cried, shaking his head vehemently, insisting that for all these years, Caleb was the only one in his heart. Caleb stood and looked down at him, his voice flat. He said that wasn't true for him. He had forgotten all about that fleeting crush he'd had at 18. Asher's expression went blank, though the tears continued to flow. Caleb turned and left, adding that he expected a professional attitude at their next meeting, or their companies would no longer be doing business together. When Caleb was 28, his father had a major health crisis, but he pulled through. The gears of time began to align. The next year, his sister gave birth to twins. He claimed his niece as his successor. His sister and her husband just laughed, saying it would be up to her. His parents had tried to push him toward marriage, but when they saw he had no interest, they let it go, saying it was good to have him at home with them. They bought a larger estate so his sister's family could visit more often, with rooms designed specifically for the children. The old house was left as it was. Caleb went into his old bathroom, shattered the mirror, and had it replaced, severing his connection to the future for good. Asher never sought him out again. Like Caleb, he remained single. But Caleb was not lonely. He had a large, loving family. This time, he had kept his promise to spend more time with them.